Hello, everyone. I am Melissa Gurney-Green. I'm the Senior Director of Community Management here at HashiCorp, and I'm here today to talk to you about how HashiCorp does community management. You can reach me on LinkedIn, or if you like, my DMs are open. You can hit me up on Twitter at SolutionGeek. I am super excited to be here with you today and to talk through a lot of the lessons learned we have in community management over the years. So first things first. We recently made a license change about a year ago now from MPL to source available for several of our core projects. Because those projects are still source available and we still welcome contributions, there are still a lot of lessons learned that apply here. So I'm going to treat it as if I'm advising on open source because that's what the bulk of my experience has been, but that's also what the bulk of projects are out there. A lot of these lessons will still apply if you have source available projects going on. So feel free to take what you can learn. And if you have questions, please reach out. A few fun facts. So right now, as I said, we have a couple of source available licenses. These tend to be our core products like Terraform and Vault and about 9 others. But then we have over 1,000 open source projects. So 98% of the repos that we have publicly available to everyone are still open source. So there's a lot to talk about, a lot of lessons learned, and a lot of things that you can learn from this as you go. So a little bit more about me. I came from an infrastructure engineering background and worked as a vendor for more than a decade, but I've always been passionate about building communities. I built a community here at HashiCorp for the last 6 years now. 5 of that was solely focused on open source. I was a host of the Speaking in Tech podcast, as well as Tech Vines. I'm also an active scout leader and was an umpire-in-chief for a local Little League. So I am heavily engaged in building communities, both technical and non-technical, and love to have that experience and create that experience for others and really help them. So I'm excited to help you help others as well. Diving right in. So when you're getting started, there's a lot of reasons just not to start at all. And what we really need to think about is, one, not everybody's minimum viable project is the same. And that's okay, because each project has a purpose. So here are some common examples or excuses around why people don't get started, and my thinking as to why you should anyway. So what if somebody already built the thing? Well, you can still learn. So you can choose at that point whether you want to join that person's community and build the thing that they've already built and add to the thing that they've already built, or whether you want to try to build it yourself. And this isn't kind of a strictly binary option. You can do both. So you can start building your own thing, learn some hard lessons, and then go back to that other project and learn from them as well. Ask questions, be curious, see if you want to join and help them out, or if you're happy with the way you built it. It's very rare that 2 entities will build the same thing the same way. You're trying to accomplish the goal, but everybody thinks a little differently. So with that, and that difference in thinking, there's a lot of opportunity for more learning to happen and finding strength in your differences and how those engineering choices pay off later. The next one is, but what if I fail? Well, to me, failure is learning. So I like to learn. And if you fail at this stage, odds are there's not a lot of people looking. So it's a very safe place to fail. And you can go through and get your learning and get better so that the next thing that you build will be that much better off and that much more likely to succeed. Then the last one, but what if people go crazy and then see my work isn't perfect? Well, in that case, congratulations, you have a community. So these people will hopefully come and help you if they're worth your time. They will come and help you build a better project. So this is all stuff to be excited about. So please just jump right in and get started. Now, how do you measure engagement from the start? We're talking here about early community relations. A lot of people get excited about downloads and stars, but really what you want to look for is feedback and questions, activities in your issues and PRs, people putting out examples of these things. So downloads and stars are the things that people are going to talk about in keynotes, and those are really hero metrics, but they don't mean anything, right? You can build a bot to get a bunch of downloads. That's not really going to matter. And how many times have you started something never to come back to it? These things aren't as meaningful as feedback or questions. Feedback and questions specifically in the form of issues and PRs means somebody's actually tried to use your stuff and they want to continue using it. And those are the people that are the most important to foster, especially this early. And we have a couple of examples of this in our own community team where this was the case, where we built these things out and learned a lot. One of them is Shipyard, where one of our developer advocates built this out early on and really did it as a way to help people build demos and proof of concepts around our tools with all the learning embedded. It was successful in terms of people opening issues and PRs and giving feedback and asking questions, and we were able to build onto that tool and make it even better. Another example of this is the CDK for Terraform, in that it was built from the start as a proof of concept and kind of art of the possible for the community by our developer advocates. And as such, kind of grew in terms of people opening issues and PRs against it to the point to where we thought about it and said, hey, we really need an engineering team behind this. This isn't something that's scalable for us. So how do we figure out a way to programmatically turn that over to the engineering team and allow them to manage it in a way that really benefits the community at large and our customers at large? So taking all those things into consideration, both of these were good opportunities to learn, good opportunities to engage with the community, and really kind of fun ways in which we could engage with the community and give the community something back. But neither of them really had like super big downloads and stars from the beginning. It was a lot of issue and PR engagement and learning from the community and bringing the community in closer. So what does this look like when you're a company trying to do this? So when you're taking the first steps in building a company tech community. Now I'm going to talk about the path that HashiCorp took and a couple places where you might choose differently, but this is the path that we took. So you should start with some kind of DevRel function. Now, I don't mean go out and hire a DevRel or a developer advocate or whatever you want to call them, as some industry hype would imply. What this means is you hire an engineer that can embed with your team and who likes sharing their knowledge and is really passionate about the tool you're building. So somebody that's a little more sociable and a little more engaged in speaking publicly about their lessons learned. You get that person, you embed them with the engineering team, and you have them go out and give talks and engage and really get to understand the users. And you have them bring all that knowledge back and engage with the engineering team and the product team in order to help you build a better product. So having that person that's super passionate about using the tool, who's infectious and can rub off on the user community that the tool solves the problem for, and then showing them how much you care about the people who are struggling with whatever problem the tool you built solves in a way that is meaningful in terms of contributing back to the tool and bringing them something that actually helps them based on their own feedback. Now, next up, you're going to want a code of conduct. Now, when you're starting early in tech communities, it's very important to lay the groundwork for the kind of culture you want to engage in your community and with your engineering teams especially. So laying out a firm code of conduct, letting people know the best way to engage with you and what they can expect in the types of engagements they have with you is super, super important. Now, a lot of people here go with DMs and chat servers. What I'll tell you is at a small scale, this is great. When you're working on something and you're super dug in and there's only a few people to talk to, DMs and chat servers can be great. There is a bit of an expectation there around an immediate or close to immediate response that needs to be set out the gate or needs to be kind of modified to suit. What I'll say here is you should be thinking in terms of response time for these early projects and for these small projects of kind of a 1 to 3 day business day kind of expectation. So really getting in and focusing on how to engage those people meaningfully and in a timely manner and set expectations from the go so that you can balance your work life and their expectations to create a happier community. Now, sometimes this means mailing lists, and this can be an open or a closed mailing list, but making sure people have a place to ask questions that can be logged and get their answers in a timely manner without necessarily giving out personal DM or chat details. At this point, we also did conference and user groups around the same time. Now, not everybody has the kind of sense of who they are or the budget for a well-done conference at this stage. So if you want to save the physical conference for later and do something digital, we have a ton of lessons learned around digital conferences that we can save for another talk. There's blog resources about it if you want to look up HashiTalks. We've done this a bunch. So, but that came later in our journey for us. User groups started, and it was literally for the community, by the community. So that's how we chose to do it. There are other places that choose to kind of run that themselves. If you're running it yourself and running it as a company with local users in the area, what I'd encourage you to do is wait until you're a bit bigger in order to make that jump. But if you're doing for the community, by the community, your user group growth is really dependent on who in those local areas cares enough about your stuff to take the time to do this. And with that, you can really encourage people and engage with them more meaningfully as your community grows organically. This was also about the time we started thinking about education team and dedicated docs folks. Now, we were already really passionate about docs before, but having the engineering team that was building the tools also writing the docs had some drawbacks in that sometimes it takes somebody with a new set of eyes or a less experienced set of eyes to really fully explain things in a way that allows for better engagement and better knowledge sharing. So the education team was critical for us at this step in terms of taking it from good documentation to great documentation. Next up, we started looking at having forums. And the reason we moved to forums pretty quickly is because we found the DMs and chat servers and the mailing lists not to be scalable. Not a lot of people live on email, but also you end up having a lot of the same questions over and over again. And forums really give a web searchable way for engagement that works a lot better than DMs, chat servers, and mailing lists. So it drives a lot of efficiency early, which will protect your sanity. So things to watch out for when you're building a strong community culture. The big one is toxicity. And what I mean by that is sometimes when you have somebody that's angry and engaging with you, it's because they're passionate and disappointed. So taking that person aside, talking to them about why they're upset is super important. But there's also a point to where you need to publicly express the fact that this kind of behavior to you, but also to others in the community, will not be tolerated. And if you don't do that, it will continue to grow and happen. So you've got to be very vigilant upfront about people who act in a way that is toxic or people who do toxic things and saying, hey, this won't fly. We're going to do different. We're going to do better. And we'd like your help. Setting boundaries. And what I mean by boundaries is I mentioned that 1 to 3 day business time, response time, whatever this is for you, figure it out for yourself, but do set some boundaries on your time, whether that's taking nights off to spend with your family or taking weekends off to just decompress and get bored and come up with new and creative ideas. Set some boundaries as you go and stick to them. This will help prevent burnout and the feeling that you have to do all the things all the time, which will allow you to grow your project even more. So what happens when your project gets bigger? Well, bigger project, bigger challenges. For us, one of the first things that happened in terms of this was the modularization of Terraform. Now, in the original days, way back when, Terraform had the cloud providers kind of built in. And this is where a lot of the early open source contribution happened in Terraform. Well, as it got bigger and bigger and bigger, one of the things that we discovered was it gets harder to contribute the bigger a project gets. You need a lot more context, a lot more understanding of what's going on behind the scenes. So the best thing we could do was break out those cloud providers to where they were their own thing. So it's a little less of a knowledge gap as far as what you need to really engage with contribution, but also to make a difference. Around this time, we were also looking at starting contributor programs. So our core contributor program was started around this time. And we started looking at people who were really contributing quality code and trying to figure out a way to say thank you to them that was meaningful, but also to engage them more closely. So we built the core contributor program, and literally the first year or two was just thank you, thank you, thank you. Y'all are amazing. Please don't stop. And then over the years, we have worked to bring those core contributors in to engage with us more. Some of them have given direct product feedback. Others have taken on different roles, and we'll talk a little bit more about that in a minute. Next, we have influencer programs. Now, for us, this is the ambassador program, and this is something that's created. It's important to me to distinguish these two because there's a difference from people who contribute code and people who like to talk about how they're learning our tools publicly, and they kind of want different things, they expect different things, and they like different things. Now, there's some overlap in those two programs, and those people are kind of super users in that they can contribute code, but they also like to talk about it. So those people are special and should have the benefit of both programs. But with influencers, it's really important to give them kind of an inside look at what we're planning to do going forward and how they should think about enabling people around how to use the tools, but also kind of say thank you for all the work they do getting the word out there. These people are special to any kind of project because they're people who aren't necessarily paid inside the company to care about this stuff. So they have options with what to do with their time, and they choose us. And that says a lot to our users too, in terms of trust, in terms of interest. It helps us a lot. So we want to find a way to say thank you that's meaningful, but also give them the access they want. And that's why we created the ambassador program for that. Another way we did this is through virtual community conferences. We were starting to look at these as ways to connect our HashiCorp user groups, or hugs, with each other and allow that knowledge sharing to scale. We started with a 24-hour around the globe event, which was really meant to kind of connect people. We were thinking about this in 2018. I think we actually started in 2019. And what we found and learned from that event led us to think more about regional events and getting people engaged with each other in languages that were just really hard for us to support as a small company at the time. So finding people who were super passionate and multilingual that understood Spanish, as an example, or could speak Japanese and really go out and share their learnings and their experience with our tool in their local language or in the local language of the countries they're representing was super exciting for us and a way to make the world of HashiCorp a lot less lonely for people who did not have English as a first language. So really proud of this program and the way it's evolved over the years. And something I definitely recommend people think about as their popularity is growing and you start seeing language requests and looking at things like localization, because sometimes it's just not reasonable at this pace you're moving at to be able to execute on localization, and finding ways to work with your community to help your potential future community is a lot more reasonable and a lot easier lift. Measuring and engaging at this scale. When you're facing bigger challenges, we still look at issues in PRs, but we start to think about the time to first response. As you expand, the expectations kind of need to expand too. Those early days when every piece of feedback is important and critical to shaping the look and feel of your tool. Well, at this stage, you kind of know who you are and what you care about. So then you start thinking about priorities and how many people are using this tool and your responsibilities to these people that are using the tool. So you want to adjust your time to first response, but also ensure that you're responding to these people in a timely manner. So we usually take 7 to 10 days as a kind of guidepost for responses at this time, because you're still working to build the tool and create big features. Another thing you're going to want to look at is the number of repeat quality contributors and whether that's going up or down, and whether you need to create some contributor enablement to go along with what you already have to ensure that more people come in and are contributing quality submissions. You'll also look at things like the number of users attending conferences and user groups. As we were looking at this over the years and things were exploding, we were able to kind of see where we'd need help and kind of adjust our strategy to fit the growth of the user community, which was really exciting. You should be building out rules for contribution if you don't have them already. Issues and PR templates, this helps you to move a lot quicker and get that time to first response in there without doing a bunch of work that is very similar over and over and over again. At this point, you should start considering things like service level agreements or service level objectives for a response time. It's something that's worth considering and publicizing if you have it. It's also a time to start looking at and thinking about upvote-driven development. And what I mean by that is if you're an open project and you have issues with a lot of upvotes, you should consider those issues and not take those requests lightly. You should also consider upgrading your advocacy model at this point. So this is the point where we are heavily engaged with more than one developer advocate. It's an official role, and the advocates have their own team inside HashiCorp as opposed to living inside an engineering team directly. Now, there are times when the advocates still embed with engineering and act as they're a part of that team, but having that those advocates as their own team. And if you're multi-product like we were at the time, thinking about things like taking those developer advocates and specializing them to where they're really focused on the updates for one given workflow. And they're able to address things like infrastructure as code instead of being able to talk about infrastructure as code, app deployment, and security all together. When you have 8 different projects all focused on solving different problems with different workflows, finding someone in the advocacy space that is technical in all of them and can execute in all of them and in your specific projects is really, really a challenge. So figuring a way to allow them to specialize and be really good at 1 or 2 of those things and then growing their skills over time becomes super important here. What to watch out for at this stage? Well, some of it never changes, and that you still have to be vigilant about toxic people. But another thing you want to think about is meaningless enablement. And what I mean by that is as you get more and more popular, there become more and more requests of your time or things you could do with different potential partners, different technologies, all of these things. Remember what is most important to your users and prioritize those things and leave the other things to work themselves out. And over time, what you'll find is those other things will either go away or they'll pop up once they're more meaningful to the community again. Competition is a two-edged sword. First, it drives a lot of innovation and it's really exciting, but it can also be a trap in that when you're looking at the competition, if you're looking at them and thinking, oh, they did this, so I've got to do this, then you're losing sight of what's important to you and your users. The competition has their own group of people to address, and it's not always the same as yours. So keeping in mind that you made these technical decisions for a reason and keeping your focus on the people who are using your tool and the people who want to use your tool and really building something meaningful for them and their challenges is going to be much more valuable than just doing what the competition is doing for the sake of keeping up. That's a losing game. Another thing is you're still going to want to set boundaries to avoid burnout. So in our case at this stage, we were doing things like shutting down different communications mediums and spinning up more reasonable ones. But we were also looking at expanding the support model for our engagement on GitHub, which I'll get to in a moment. So what happens when the boat gets too big and you explode? Well, you got to build a fleet. So in this case, we had some issues in terms of our cloud providers getting thousands of issues a week and wondering, okay, how can we solve for this? Because cloud providers can release multiple services a day. We're a lot smaller than them, and it's really hard to keep up. So how do we figure out keeping up? And there's a couple of things we did. We created a team called Technical Community Management. It has since been renamed Ecosystem Engineering, but the problems it solves remain the same in that they're really here to help triage the requests and make sure that the requests coming in are high quality and well vetted. They're here to help escalate any really urgent requests like security features or security issues and things like that, and make sure they get the attention they deserve. But they're also here to kind of help consolidate all the feedback from all those issues into actionable themes for the product and engineering teams as part of roadmap feedback. So getting that work prioritized and using the metrics to help drive what's important to the roadmap has been huge for us, especially in the case of our Terraform providers, but also in the case of Terraform and Vault itself. So taking all of that and giving engineering a way to keep their sanity when the growth that's required in order to do it the way we had been doing it is just not really feasible. So what happens when you're measuring and engaging at massive scale? Well, it gets really noisy, and you have to continue to refocus yourself on what is valuable to you and to your users, but also in your own identity for the tool that you're building. There's a way to do a lot more with automated tools and systems, but just gathering data, but sharing also the value that you're bringing to the company if you're working in a company and working in open source of that company. Gathering these metrics and doing something called impact hours is how we solved this for developer advocacy. So really kind of looking at, okay, who are you reaching? How often are you reaching them? And how important is it to them that you reach them with this piece of content? How likely are they to act based on what you've given them? So that's where the idea of impact hours came from. And with that, we can look over time and say, okay, is our message in terms of trying to help others with this specific problem being heard? Are people responding well to it? Does something need to change about the way we're talking about infrastructure as code or secrets or what have you? In terms of your events, you're also going to want to look at return speakers versus new speakers. Are you having the same people year over year coming and speaking? Is there anybody new showing up? Of those new people, what are they talking about? What's interesting to them? How do you need to curate your event experience, whether it be live events or digital events, in a way that's going to make sure it addresses the whole community and not just the experts, or in a way that addresses the whole community and not just the beginners, while the experts are left wanting more. This is also the time we introduce something as a company called OSS Health Metrics, and it's based a lot on the items I mentioned before with issues and PRs and time to first response, in figuring out, okay, how healthy is our open source engagement? Are the people that come to us and asking us for help getting the help they need in a timely manner? So we grade ourselves red, yellow, or green based on this level of engagement, based on our ability to reply and fix bugs and things of that nature. And when we started this, it was a very flexible kind of approach from the beginning. And over time, we've kind of dialed it in to really focus on that response time for issues and PRs to make sure that the community experience was getting better over time. And we've seen a lot of great results over the last 2 years that address this. So I can't believe I'm saying this, but metrics can actually be really cool. On the left here, we have a tool that we built that allows us to kind of effectively track the issues in this case that that we're working through and triaging for the Azure provider for Terraform, and to be able to feel like we've actually accomplished something. Because one of the challenges in ecosystem engineering, when you're going through thousands of requests a week and trying to figure out how best to support the community, you can be doing a whole lot of work, but you don't really get to see the payoff for that work or get a sense for the kind of progress you're making when every time you close 10 things, another 10 pop up. So being able to look at this and go, hey, I've actually done a lot of good work this week is really helpful for preventing burnout and keeping morale high, but also in terms of being able to articulate to the engineering team what's going on with the community and how engaged they are. On the right, we have impact hours by channel, which is something that our DAs are measured on. So here we're looking over a year time frame. There is a little bit of a drop between specifically October and January that year, due to 3 of the team members being out on parental leave at the same time. But overall, it kind of shows the busy seasons for us in terms of conferences and engagement, whether that channel be video content or in-person conferences and things like that. Now, typically October through January are actually quite busy for us, but they're also in-person conference busy, which, depending on the places you get accepted, kind of varies in terms of what your actual impact hours look like. But with this data, you can kind of show over time how many people you're reaching in a way that's digestible by others in the company that may not fully understand what it means to be in developer relations. So things to watch out for at this stage. Well, it's really hard to scale your strong community culture without turning it into a bit of a cult. So you really have to foster communication with people ongoing. But what you'll find here is there are a lot of people in your community that have watched your pattern over this progressive growth and will help you police the challenges in your community with new members or even existing members in a way that's much more helpful and allows you to focus on continuing to engage and delight them. You're still going to have to worry about things like toxicity and meaningless enablement, competition. But again, setting boundaries and burnout kind of evolves again at this stage where you're constantly having to go, okay, what do I really care about? Is this thing that looks like it's a big crisis really a crisis? Or is it something that only a few people see and I just need to help those people understand what's going on and work them through it? Another thing to watch out for, I would say, at this level is echo chambers. There's a lot of excitement that comes with being a project this big, and there's a lot of criticism that comes with being a project this big. So seek out those alternative opinions, understand the source of them, understand how you can help them. A lot of dissenting opinion and frustrations sometimes is just love disappointed. So figure out if this disappointment is something that you can correct, and watch out for the kind of everything is awesome crowd. In that if you stay the course and don't continue to innovate, you'll eventually lose your audience to someone who will. So it's a balancing act at all times of maintaining perspective in terms of what's happening in your own ecosystem. And what I mean by that is when you're a small company, you're so busy just getting something done that that you don't always notice these things. And when you're a big company, things are happening so often that that you don't really have time to focus on a specific thing. And in a way, being in the middle is kind of the worst of both worlds, where you're super busy, but every big thing that happens feels so big. So taking that minute to just put things back into perspective and say, hey, these are solvable problems and we have the opportunity to go do it. Let's prioritize and get it figured out is really key to all of this. So I thank you all for being on this journey with me and giving me the opportunity to continue to work with and for all of you, and really delighting you in every way that we can. If you need to reach me, I'm on LinkedIn, but you can also hit me up on Twitter at SolutionGate, or you can send me an email at melissa@hashicorp.com. Thank you.